Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our session, being a multi-sport mom in 21st century competitive spaces. I am Ajoa.
I'm Rudy, or Rudesia.
Yes, and we're going to talk to you today about our experiences being multi-sport moms and what our journey has been thus far and kind of what we foresee for our future. But I want to start with this quote because it resonated with both of us, and we'll see if it resonates with any of you. Being a mother is learning about strengths you didn't know you had and dealing with fears you didn't know existed. So just kind of let that marinate a little bit. And even if you're not a mother, think about those friends and peers and family members that you have that are mothers that may have communicated having somewhat of this experience. So now we're going to introduce ourselves. As I said, I'm Ajoa Abrokwa. I am a mother of three. I have a 19-year-old daughter. I have a soon-to-be 18-year-old son, and I have a 5-year-old. My daughter this past year was transitioning into her sophomore year at the university. She goes to George Washington University in Washington, D.C. My son is entering his senior year at a charter school in Delaware, and then my 5-year-old entering kindergarten. So I say all that to say, busy, and I am a single woman, so I am managing all of that in addition to being a professional and some community service obligations as well, and then also pursuing a hobby that I have grown to love and have been actively engaged in. So just remember all of that when I begin to tell you my story, okay? Now I'm going to let Rudy go.
Hello everyone, I am Rudesia. I am also a mother of three. All my children are clustered together, but soon to be 15-year-old, soon to be 7-year-old, and soon to be 3-year-old. I am a personal trainer, also building a business, and currently in school to be a yoga instructor. We'll be speaking about my journey and how this has helped structure my life and helped get through some of the extremes in motherhood and help balance myself and help find something for me that is separated from my family dynamic.
Excellent. So how did Rudy and I come together? So there's this amazing cycling club that I'm sure almost everyone in this room at this point has heard of. Kings Rule Together and Queens Rule Together. She and I both met at being members of Queens Rule Together Cycling Club. All the queens, I see you all out there. Thank you very much for your support, and kings. She's joking. Thank you very much for showing up and being supportive. But that's how we met. We were both cycling with the club, and this is a picture of our first ride together. We showed up. Yes, what a difference some time makes, right? They're laughing at how we look, but we've adjusted and we've adapted and we've grown since then. But yes, this was a picture of our first ride together, and I remember riding with Rudy and thinking like, oh, she's so good. Like she came in very strong, and that was helpful because in addition to her being strong, she was very encouraging as well. And then we just developed a friendship and a relationship, and it's grown. And we've done a lot of cycling activities together. So how does life feel for us? A lot of times, right? So that green area that you see here is like work and business. We spend a lot of time focusing on work, things external to the home, businesses, building them, trying to grow them. The blue area is family. Family takes up a lot of time for us. And then the other is the yellow, which could be community service, could be religious obligations, could be all of that other. And then the green is like what the time, the space that we have for ourselves. So just wanted to give you like a picture of how we feel our lives are allocated, like where we allocate our time, our money, and our energy in our lives. So think about these 6 C's: commitment, consistency, courage, competition, completion, and care. Because these 6 C's are pretty much the foundation to us being able to be engaged at the level that we're engaged at in our activities. And you're going to hear Rudy speak now about commitment to herself, commitment to her family, commitment to her teammates. You're going to hear her speak about consistency, the consistency that she had to put forth to be able to engage, the courage that it takes to become actively engaged and show up at that start line no matter what it is that she's doing, and the competition. Like, not all of us got into cycling or running or engaged in the club to compete, right? But it takes that commitment, consistency, and courage to even be able to show up and compete. Completion. How many of us have been involved in a race or a ride and been like, you know what? I've had enough. I feel like I want to stop right now. However, it's that mental strength, right, that lends itself to you completing. No matter what position, no matter what place, the completion is key. And then the care. The care is the care that you give to yourself afterwards, right? And what that looks like, it could be something different for each of us. However, making sure that you engage in that aspect of it as well. Okay? So, Rudy's story.
So, my story and how I got here. Being stuck in the middle of the pandemic with a family of 6. I also have a bonus daughter, so there's my family of 6 with my partner. And I got a bike in July of last year, so that was my bike versary. My partner brought me a bike, literally the last bike in the store. And I clicked in that day and had a couple of tumbles. Wasn't sure if it was for me. But before the pandemic, I was just in the gym all the time, very active, Spartan race. So when life shut down, kids are home, I needed something for me, because it was either that or I was going, as everyone else, because if you didn't find something for yourself, you know, it was everyone was getting cabin fever and everyone had their breaking points. So yes, during riding, he had actually introduced me to KRT, and surprisingly, I knew a few of the members and the owners. So I reached out to them, and that's how I got on my first ride with Ajoa and a few of the other queens that are here today. And it felt like a place again, for me to have a place in my life again, somewhere I could be me again, somewhere outside my family, my children, and I didn't feel so obligated. And then it became my peace. It became that active meditation and just that self-care that I really had been neglecting over those months during the pandemic, that I didn't have to think about, you know, I have to go food shopping, I have to cook dinner, I have to make lunch. And then I started really focusing on me and losing the selfish feeling that I had, that I was neglecting my family for hours of riding, because this is what I need so that I can be better for them. And that's where I get to focusing on my mental health, because, you know, it was, you know, days went by and I'm like, I can't ride. It's like, I need to do this. It became a need and not a want. And I had to continue. I had to push forward and see what was next for me. But then during riding, yes, we all had a great time, but I have a competitive spirit and I needed something more for me. And I've always wanted to do a triathlon. I read this one book called From David Goggins, which was also a birthday gift for my partner, called Can't Hurt Me. And he just talked about how much the human body can do and how we really don't tap into how amazing we can be. Was I afraid? Yes. We all look into getting in the water as kids, but swimming is a whole new dynamic. So I ended up being part of a grantee program for Black women in sports, which was an amazing experience for me. The initial race that we were supposed to do, the swim portion, was unfortunately taken out because of the pandemic requirements, but I wanted to do the swim. So after 2 months of pushing myself to swim in classes, I decided to find one race that was going to give me the full triathlon, which I did in Maryland. and I completed my first full sprint triathlon. And while I was out there, someone called and said, hey, someone needs a cyclist for their relay this Saturday. I spoke it over with my family, and they said, you know what, you need a break. School's getting ready to kick back in. Just go ahead. So I went from Maryland, stayed about 5 days, and ended up in Virginia and did the referee tri, which I also got a chance to experience with Ajoa, and we were racing, or we participated in it together, which was a great, great experience. And I met some amazing women of color there, and it gave me a different dynamic of what triathlons look like, because when we do see triathlons, we don't see us in it. Well, at least I personally don't see myself and people who look like me doing it. And it's funny because one of the kids yesterday that was here talked about the imposter syndrome, and it resonated so much in me, is that when we're in our boxes, we feel amazing, we feel great, and we feel great competing against our peers. But when you go into these larger spaces, you go, do I really belong here? Because you stop seeing people that look like you. And just talking to a lot of women, I said, you know what? I do see people that look like me. I see mothers out here. I see women out here. I see people who have life obligations that choose to do this anyway. And it still pushed me. So when I finally did get a chance to compete in the duathlon, of which I was through the grant program, I appreciated that journey, but it wasn't what did it for me. It was me going out my own way to do those triathlons in spite of the duathlon not competing in the swim. And I also just still wasn't enough. So I decided, made a goal in August. The duathlon was in July. I made a goal in August to get in the open water. And I was afraid, but I definitely chose a goal and I stuck with it, and it wasn't the best decision, but I decided to get in the open water August 1st, and then get in the open water race the very next weekend. And that was the hardest thing I've done to date. And it makes me emotional, because it's like when you're out there and you're in it and you're in that water, and I appreciate all those who chose to give their time to me and cheer me on and be out there when I hit that ground. But it's just every swim class, I was the only person of color, not woman of color, I was the only person of color. And so many times I felt like I should quit, like I don't belong here, this is their space, and again, I'm an imposter in it. But I kept pushing, because it would be the indirect, oh, you're back. Oh, you are gonna still continue this. Oh, she's back again. Oh, we saw you take your hair out last week, so, we just figured you would take a break. These are real comments. And it didn't discourage me. It pushed me to, haha, yes, I'm back. Yes, I am back again. So the triathlon, we decided to do, me, myself, Ajoa, and the lovely Jenna here, who also decided to do the relay with us. We were the only women of color there. And we didn't even care. We didn't even look at it. We didn't even notice it till the end of the race, because we knew why we were there and why we had committed ourselves to it. And I knew I had a team out there. So in the middle of that water, for the lovely 45 minutes, I did whatever stroke I could think of to get back to that shore. And I heard them screaming, and to me, like, I wanted to feel like, and it was a personal, just like feeling inside of me. It was just like, if I don't make it back to this shore, like, I'm showing myself that I don't belong in this space. But to make it back to that shore can show everyone that we belong in this space, and if we commit to something, that we can also do it as well. Even if we don't see people that look like us, even if the background that we grew up in, it wasn't normalized for us. And that this world is ours too. And everything that everyone is doing, we can do it as well. So yeah, just finishing that race, I wanted to continue, and I wanted to more. And One thing I didn't speak on from the beginning was just the training aspect of it, and I kind of slipped over it for a reason to speak on it at the end, is that when we commit ourselves to something, everyone around you is committing themselves to what you want to do. So, I mean, I had lots of tears, lots of feeling selfish moments when I'm swimming at 5 in the morning and I'm running late to take my kids to school. Or at the time they were virtual learning. So I have to get up and they're used to, oh, mom's making a hot breakfast for me. Oh, no, I have to eat cereal. Or, you know, I'm not spending enough time with my spouse and I'm jumping out the bed at 5 in the morning, or I'm getting in the bed at 9 o'clock at night because I'm exhausted from the day. And a lot of times I was just like, why am I doing this? You know, they deserve more, but I deserve more too. And this is something I want to do. And, you know, just communicating that with my family and the kids seeing it and just getting used to, oh, Mom, did you have your swim today? Mom, are you going for your bike ride today? Oh, you're running today. Oh, can I ride my bike while you run? And it felt good to include them in my journey. And eventually my, almost 15-year-old at the time decided he wanted to be a cyclist as well. And it gave us a lot more to bond on and just communicate with, because those who have teenagers, that communication barrier gets very thin. And you're just like, I want to love you, but I don't know how to talk to you. So it definitely gave us more to bond on, all the flat tires and bent rims and Mom, can you come get me because I have a flat? But it was good to let them see my journey and let them feel normal in my journey. Because when they speak to their friends, especially my 15-year-old, it's like, your mom goes, what? You're black. And then we would hear that from the teachers. It's like, oh, why is there so many bikes behind you? Oh, my parents are cyclists. And, you know, you see the look on their face and go, but you're black. And, but they see it and it's normalized for them. And I appreciate it being normal for them. So when they get older, and they will be in those spaces, and it's like, what do you mean I don't belong? This is how I grew up. This is all I know. And just continuing to push that into our children, our future generations, whether it's a niece, a grandchild, or a family friend, just pushing that and letting them see more and how normal it is. And, you know, us as parents, I agree that, yeah, we have to have spaces for ourselves, but it does get easier when you pull those children into those spaces. And they will appreciate you for it, and they will be the reflection of the decisions you make every day.
For sure.
But that was my journey. I did not say what's next for me, so I just decided to get into cyclocross. I made a decision one day. I bought the bike, and I was just like, this is the space for me. Like, I saw lots of crit racing. I was like, that's not for me. But the cyclocross, I just felt at home. And I will definitely be continuing my triathlon journey, because this is something I've definitely committed myself to. And I'm going to find the balance wherever it looks like. However I find the need to do it, I'm going to do it. Yeah, thank you guys for listening.
So I'm sure you don't mind if I sit, right? My story is a little different than Rudesia's, however, there are some parallels there. Again, for those that came in late, I'm Ajoa, AKA, in my competitive space, the warrior princess. And when I did the Philadelphia women's draft line, when you register, you can give them like a name or something that you go by or that you want to be called, and that's what I called myself, the warrior princess. So when I came through the finish line, the announcer said the warrior princess, and I remember like my teammates were like, what did they say? Did they call you that? Or did you call yourself that? And I'm like, no, I'm a self-proclaimed warrior princess. So why did I get started? During the pandemic, I am one who is, I'm outside, I'm out the house. I'm always doing something. Those that know me, and you haven't had to know me for a long period of time to know, like I'm always doing, and a lot of my doing is external to my home. So I'm not accustomed to being in the house for long periods of time, working from home, taking all my meetings from home, playing from home. Like, it was a lot for me. And I've been engaged in sports my entire life. Like, I grew up in a household where we all are like athletes, and I've tried almost every sport from field hockey to softball to basketball. But you know, you kind of have to have the experiences to know like what you like and what you don't like, right? So the running is natural to me. I love running. I'm a sprinter, I'm a hurdler, and I became a middle distance runner as a high schooler. So during the pandemic, and I'm home, and I'm like, I want to run, but I don't want to run with a mask on, and I wasn't really sure what the mandates were and how you had to, you know, engage on trails and things with the mask, and I didn't want to do that. So I remember texting like a friend, and I had always considered, like for the past couple of years, maybe 3, I had considered purchasing a bike because I was around cyclists. A family member of mine cycled, and I didn't really feel like it was the right time for me to purchase it then. But during the pandemic, I texted a friend, I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, I think I'm getting ready to buy a bike. I'm like, you are? Yes. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna buy one too. And she ordered her bike, and I remember like feeling like, oh my goodness, she ordered the bike, I told her I would buy one, I have to buy a bike now because we're gonna start riding bikes. And I went, my son and I, we drove to all the stores in Philadelphia, sold out. Drove down to Delaware. I was familiar with some bike stores in Delaware, Giant, went all through Christiana, Wilmington, sold out. We ended up at a bike line in Middletown, and they had these weird hours because of the pandemic. So we got down there maybe at like 10:30, and they're like, we don't open until 1. We're down here already. So we went and got some lunch, and we came back at 1. And the guy's like, we have one bike that might be your size, but you may not like the color. I'm like, let me see. So he pulls out this gray and pink bike. I'm like, what size is it? He's like, a 51. I said, that's what they said I am. And he's like, do you like the color? I love the color. So I rode the bike around the parking lot, had my son take the wheel off. I bought the bike, I had my bike. For me, purchasing the bike was just like, I'm gonna buy this bike so I can engage in an activity outside the home that would be safe right now. I had no idea that I would grow to love the cycling. However, I was searching for inner peace at the time because during the pandemic I engaged in a lot of self-reflection, and I thought about like, looked at my life, like what do I have in front of me, what's going on in my life, and I really understood that I was doing a lot, and there was a lot of positive things going on, but I did not have that level of inner peace that I needed to be able to move in a direction that I wanted to move in, if that makes sense. So me cycling really gave me the opportunity to engage in that active meditation and just began to put things in their proper place. And as I'm like pedaling on the bike and I'm taking in, the breeze, and the sun is shining on me, I really got the chance to think about, okay, what am I doing in my life that I feel like is for me, is mine, and that I love? Like I do a lot of things that I like to do. I do a lot of things that I'm good at, but what am I doing that I really love and I can say this is for me? And the cycling became that. I got started just holding myself accountable to recommit to me, right? Like I commit to so many other things, but this cycling, I bought the bike. I'm going to commit to riding the bike because I bought the bike, and this is something that I'm going to hold myself accountable to. And it's really taken me on a path of the unknown. Like when I bought the bike, I'm like, I'll ride bikes. I'll ride bikes and I'll just ride on trails, and that's pretty much the gist of it. And then I became a member of this club, and the club transitioned my biking experience to want to engage in like cycling. Now, the power of networking. So I met a guy in the parking lot. He said he had a club. I'm with one of my cycling friends, and I'm like, okay, so what does that mean for me? Because I just started riding. He's like, well, just come and ride with us and, see how you feel. And the next day we went on a ride with him, and I felt horrible. I remember like riding up this hill, and I really was thinking like, who does this? Like, why would people do this? Like, and how am I ever going to figure out like, this just isn't for me. Now I can ride a bike, but this aspect of it, like climbing these hills and stuff, I really, in my mind, I had to dig down deep and engage in some real positive self-talk because I was like, I'm not doing this again. And I remember the guys shooting past me, they were flying, and then a couple of them were just like, are you okay? I'm like, I guess so. They're like, you'll get it, flying. But I made it to the top of the hill. And then I'm like, oh, I made it to the top of the hill. So that was an accomplishment for me. So if I could make it to the top of the hill that day after feeling like that, I'm like, I can do this. And I committed to coming out the next day, and I started riding with them regularly. Talking to different people. So the power of the network, what it means is that I was new to cycling, so I needed to talk to people who cycle. That's just naturally, I'm one of those people. If I'm gonna get engaged with something or get involved with something, let me talk to the people who are doing it, who are successful, so I can get some nuggets to figure out how I'm gonna manage this. When do you ride? How often do you ride? What do you take on the rides? Like, and I'm talking to folks and they're telling me, and I could appreciate that because it lent itself to a positive experience. The power of the village. I have my mom here in the audience today. My mom is, yes, I'm gonna shout her out. So my mother lives near the like rendezvous point where we start our rides, right? And I would just call her, Mom, I'm going on a ride. Can I drop off the kids? She's like, come on, bring them over. And then she started asking questions like, what's up with this bike riding? Because you're out here every day, you know, you're going on these rides regularly. Like, what is it? What's going on? I'm like, I just like it. I didn't know I would like it so much, but I just like it. And my mother is one who, if I'm engaging in something, she supports everything that I do. So this is a journey that I decided to embark on. My mother is there to support me, bring the kids over, no worries, come get them when you're done. The power of intrinsic motivation, yeah, that part right there. So many days I wanted to not get up. I wanted to not continue the rides. I wanted to not engage with the people because they'll call me like, are you riding today? Avoidance. I would like to avoid them so that I don't even need to answer their questions. However, that intrinsic motivation to want to do better and want to try to see like, okay, how far can you go with this? It went far and it lends itself to some really productive things. So here I have a picture of this group. Let me see. On your left is a group of people that I met. Khadijah Diggs is a part of that group, and for those who don't know, she is the first hijabi Muslim woman wearing a hijab or a kimar to compete with Team USA as a triathlete. And I remember hearing about her back in like 2016, 2017, 2018, and I remember my family member went to a triathlon, and he came home really excited, like, there's a Muslim woman who does triathlons. I'm like, what? I had no idea. And I'm like, well, tell me, what does that even look like? Because in my mind, I'm thinking about all the reasons why it would be challenging for a Muslim woman to participate in a triathlon. And he's like, you gotta look her up, you gotta check her out. So when I started cycling, the network piece, right? I thought about who are the people that I know. I didn't know Khadijah, but I knew of her. Send her a message. I was like, I want to talk to you. I need to know what you wear when you compete. You know, like, have you had any challenges? How are people treating you? Like, how are you welcome? She messaged me back. She said, let's set up a Zoom because we need to talk. We set up that Zoom. We talked for about an hour. She gave me all the nuggets. And I was so happy because she didn't know me. I didn't know her, but she was willing to share her time and her experiences with me. And I could appreciate that. So that was in maybe December of last year, this past December. In January, she called me. She was like, you're riding? Yes. Okay, so I think that I'm going to have you come down in June and compete with us. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, I want to invite you to come and compete on a triathlon relay with me and some athletes that I'm training. Okay, so I would not tell this lady no. When I called, she answered. So I'm like, okay, fine. What do I need to do to best prepare for that? Because I didn't know, and I was new to triathlon relays. She's like, just ride those hills, you'll be okay. Fine, she said, ride the hills, I'll ride the hills. There's another woman on in our club, Kathleen. I can't remember Kathleen's last name. However, Miss Kathleen, she does duathlons, and I saw that she did them. So when Khadijah called me and told me she wanted me to participate on this relay, I called Kathleen and said, Kathleen, tell me, you've done these races, what do I need to do? How can I best prepare? She said, let's set up a meeting. We set up a meeting. She gave me a blueprint. I listened. This other picture with the women under the bridge, those are queens from QRT support system. The one thing that I will say is that when you're new to a space, it's always helpful to be welcomed, you know, with open arms, and it's helpful to have a support system to encourage you, to lift you up, to you know, share those laughs with you and maybe some tears if you feel like you need to cry. However, those women, that's who they are, you know, and there's never one time that I wanted to go on a ride, and if I put out a call, someone was coming, you know, and it was helpful because as I'm trying to get myself better and prepare for this journey that I'm about to embark on, being in a competitive space, they were there, and they may not have been interested in competing, but they were there to be supports to help me best prepare. And that bottom picture is a picture of an amazing experience I had. So after speaking to Khadijah, Aisha McGowan, the first pro Black woman cyclist, she put out for a grant. And she was calling all cyclists, no matter what level you were on, you know, if you were a woman, if you had a bike, if you thought about riding a bike, anything, if you wanted to race or had considered racing, she wanted you to apply for this grant. And I was watching the videos and I'm, you know, thinking, you know, I don't know if I'm ready for this just yet. And Khadijah messaged me, she said, "You applied, right?" And I'm like, maybe. She was like, "No, you need to apply and apply now." And it was the last day of the grant, and the last day, it was a deadline. And I remember telling my kids, like, I have to make a video, help me. And they're like, "We're not helping you do anything." So I sat up, I got my phone, and I started making this video. And as I started to make the video, I'm like, I can do this. I'm gonna do it, and these are the reasons why. And that's what I said in my video. And I got the grant, I got awarded the grant, and I ended up going to the Tour of the American Dairylands in Wisconsin for a week long of crit racing. Now I told you when I started, I told you kind of what my experience was thus far, and I had not thought about being a crit racer at this time, but I was going. So I had to make a few phone calls. Who races crit? Who's done crit, you know? And I reached out to one of my friends at the Philly Bike Expo, and she's like, "No worries, I got you." We went on a ride together, had a couple phone calls. She told me to sign up for a preview race in Riverton, New Jersey. I did that. Aisha was very helpful with trying to get us prepared, but it's challenging to talk to someone who like races, you know, as a profession, for them to get you, amateur, never raced before, get you together. So I listened to her, but I'm like, you just don't get it. So I talked to, you know, some other racers, and that was helpful, but it didn't like ease. It didn't ease anything. However, I thought about, okay, I have to train for these races. Now, with QRT and the other groups that I rode bikes with, you know, it was more social to me. Like, we would ride, we would enjoy ourselves, you know, we would go out and, you know, we were building community and relationships. However, it wasn't training. And I felt like I needed to be more intentional with my approach because I'm about to go embark on this journey into these competitive spaces. So I had to somewhat kind of distance myself from that and try to engage in training, which was a challenge because that social aspect of it was what kept me like wanting to do it. However, the training part is what I knew I needed to do. So if you could get there, like, you know, what draws me to the sport and to the activity is kind of what I have to kind of give up a little bit, because I have to be intentional because I wanted to at least like stay alive in these spaces. And I was concerned about just how I would fare at the crit races and even at doing the triathlon relay. So becoming more intentional with my approach to cycling, I tried to get on like a regimen and to best prepare myself to be at the start line. And it is a story of me pushing my limits because I didn't feel like I was ready, but here I had to think I was ready to even be able to get to the starting line, right? Now, this is a picture of me at the first race that I did, Riverton. And then the other picture is me coming in, going through the finish line at the Philadelphia Women's Duathlon. And I have this quote here: "It's not about winning the race always, it's about making it to the finish line." And that's the approach that I took for all of the competitive spaces that I was in this past season. This was a year of exploration for me. So I was kind of feeling my way through, seeing what I liked, what I didn't like. But how will you ever know if you don't engage and have the experience, right? So I didn't feel like, I am an amateur. I didn't feel like I shouldn't be in those spaces. What I felt like was it's necessary for me to be in those spaces, for me to see, okay, moving forward, where do I want to allocate my energy? What do I want to do? Do I even want to be competitive? And I would never have known that had I not engaged. Riverton, I'll never forget that race because I was so nervous. And when I say nervous, these people over here can attest to, like, you could see the ghostly look on my face. And, but the refreshing part and the comforting part was these people were there and they were cheering for me and they knew how nervous I was, but they were still like, you can do it. And they thought I could do it. I thought I could do it. So I did it. Now, the mom part is this. In my house, we are cultivating a culture of health and wellness. My kids see me every day engage in these activities that I'm doing. It's not foreign to them, and it's becoming more of the culture and more of just the norm in our household. So I'm teaching them as I'm doing. And a lot of times I would feel like I'm taking time away from them because I'm engaging in these activities. However, as Rudesia said, for me to be my best self in my house with my kids at work, I need to be able to feel like I have the space to focus on myself and engage in these activities that I want to do. When I went to Wisconsin, I had to call on my village. Who can watch my kids for a week? This one has to go to school. This one has to go to camp. Like, who can manage? But luckily for me, I have a village and I have people who want to see me win and who support me. So they engaged in, transporting the kids and making sure they were safe. And when I was in Wisconsin, I was able to focus on what I was doing. I didn't have to worry about, are my kids okay? Because I left them with people who were responsible, who could care for them. It's been definitely a journey of learning how to prioritize, right? How to best allocate time, money, and energy, because the involvement in this space requires you to give time, money, and energy. But it's like, what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for, are you looking to be a spectator? Are you looking to just kind of lightweight dip your toe in? Or do you want to fully be immersed in the activities? And if you want to be actively engaged, then you commit to it and you allocate your time, money, and energy, and you prioritize it. And I feel like for me, it's prioritizing me. So I don't feel like I'm taking away to engage. I feel like I'm actually adding to, and it's just a matter of me figuring out kind of what that looks like. Some of the final thoughts, and Rudesia, you can cut in at any time. However, it's do the things that make you happy. Work towards creating a healthy balance for yourselves. Use your resources. They serve as a support. And if for nothing else, I encourage use your resources, use your human resources. There are people in these spaces who are doing and who have done the things that you want to do. Tap into them. Don't be afraid. I'll tap into it. I'll call the president. I need to know, how did you become president? How long did it take? Who did you have to talk to? I do that, and I do that in all spaces, but that lends itself to me being successful as well. And that's important. Tap into the people who can help guide you and advise you. Give yourself grace. When I was in Riverton doing those crit races, they were flying. The field was flying. I knew I was not best prepared to be in that space. However, that was not even my purpose. My purpose to be in Wisconsin and Riverton participating in those crit races was served. And it was served on many levels. However, give yourself grace and know, like, you're starting out. If you commit and you're consistent, you too will be flying as well. And enjoy your journey and all of the life experiences. I have definitely enjoyed my journey thus far, the good and the bad of it, the aches and the pain, the crying, all of it. I enjoy it because I'm showing myself what I can do, right? And I've never allowed what others may think I can't do or that little voice in the back of my head that tries to tell me I can't do it, I never let that control me. It's really about you can do it, and you do it at your own pace. You do it the way you need to do it, and you just get it done. And that's pretty much my experience.
With my final thoughts, I think my biggest thing was fear is normal, fear is healthy, and I think we do more because of fear. And just having patience with yourself and just having patience with the things that you want to do, what you want to be, and staying true to yourself, because you'll have people around you that, they make decisions not to do certain things, and you can't be afraid to do things on your own. I think sometimes everyone wants a following, and you have to be okay with jumping out there and doing things alone. That was another thing with, and speak on with the cyclocross race, I was the only woman of color there also. But again, like, I'm at a space, and I've continued to be at a space in my life where it doesn't always have to be that's your reason. You're out here, we all want to do these things. You'll see other people out there that you meet along the way, and people will definitely surprise you. And one experience doesn't have to ruin the next experience. One interaction doesn't have to ruin the next interaction. And also, sometimes you have to leave people open to their own opinions, and say that's okay, but this is what I want to do, and that's okay. I think we just have to learn how to push limits sometimes, and that can be mentally, physically, spiritually, in any way. But just, my biggest fear is being complacent in life, and just, not taking that leap that I wanted to take out of fear, and just embracing that fear and dragging it along with me. But thank you, everyone.
Yep, for sharing. Any questions?
Comments?
Sure.
Well wishes?
We have a question here. We have a question here.
So thank you so much for sharing, sir. You guys, the two of you ladies are just so inspiring, and really why I personally love triathletes. Just the community, just the drive, the dedication, the time management. It's really impressive and amazing. So Philly has a great triathlon community, and I think we have Maria here from T3 Philly, Brian from Schuylkill Tri Club. What can the local clubs do to kind of partner with you all to help support you in growing your triathlon journey? I love what you've committed to so far, but what can we do to help you further your goals in the sport?
I would say for me personally, just with me, of course, doing the swimming aspect, is I'm still learning where my resources are. I gratefully met someone in KRT who was into triathlon, so he was able to get me into open water swim, but I had no clue where to start. It's just definitely finding more resources and getting those resources into more atmospheres that are not the normal.
That's great, because we have Andrea Berger, PA, coach here.
I met Andrea. I met Andrea.
Yep.
Brian also from Schuylkill Tri. John Kenny runs swims out of Schuylkill River, so I think
it's just someone like me, and where I grew up at, where would I find those resources? That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Where would my children, where would their high schools, where would those colleges, where would they find those resources?
I agree. I think it's the education piece and the exposure, right? So I'm an educator, and I think that it would be wonderful, and I've spoken to some other leaders in the space, to go into the schools and even come to universities and have these conversations about this opportunity, or this experience, and just having folks know, okay, this is what it is. This is somewhat of what it entails. If you're interested, this is how you can become involved. And I think that can start as early as like middle school, or even, earlier than that. I have a 5-year-old who definitely she's been in the spaces and it's a norm for her. So she's already thinking along the lines of, this is what I want to do. And obviously we're going to support that. But I think that partnering with schools and Boys and Girls Clubs and Big Brother, Big Sister, like those organizations to provide education. And you're educating the adults, the leaders of those clubs and those organizations, but also the students and participants. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions or comments?
So I would love to do a triathlon or duathlon, and I can swim, I cycle, and I've done running, but I don't like open water. Do they have pool
Yes.
swimming?
So, the first one I did, Columbia, Maryland, that was they're one of the rare ones that have a super sprint pool. The Philly Duathlon is normally a triathlon. That's a pool swim also.
Okay.
So there's tons of resources, tons of sites that you can go on. It will say pool swim.
Okay.
And I think there's also another one too.
Upper Dublin is a pool swim.
Okay.
And that's done by that local community we talked about in the earlier sessions. DQ Events puts that one on. So that's pretty, a little bit outside of Philly.
Yeah, the women's triathlon that do it on the Ajoa, that's all women, it's in the pool at, what's the pool?
Kelly Pool.
So right down Park.
Also, if you just look up French Creek Racing and John Kenny, who's the kind of director of it. During COVID, we had no shortage of swimmers. We've always had a pool, and even like right now, Lawrence Park, it's an 80-degree warm pool. It's going on and going on. It's all year round.
Okay.
And then we do open water swimming in the Schuylkill River over by Valley Forge National Park. And so all levels, and it's just, we have kayak support, even lifeguard training too, And so it's look it up, French Creek Racing. John Kenny is a professional triathlete and open water expert. And just look it up, French Creek Racing, John Kenny. There's resources and connect.
And then another, well, I mean, it's not triathlon, I mean, or competitions, but places to swim, Philadelphia Fins, they have a pool at Friend Select, and it's in the evenings, Monday through Thursday, and then on the weekends in the morning, Saturday and Sunday.
You said Philadelphia what?
Fins, F-I-N-S.
Also, if you go through USA Swim Masters, US Swim Masters, you can find them you just put your zip code in and it'll tell you where the swim classes are.
So mine was more of a remark tying in something that you guys said in partner with Andrea and Ed are saying. I think a lot of what we are all aiming for that are kind of new to the space but are kind of embracing it the way we are is getting people in younger. So I think a really big part of that is, I remember being in school and things like that where people from different organizations came in and brushed on some things. I went to Philadelphia Public School, and a lot of the time it wasn't that we weren't made aware of it. It's about who's trying to make us aware, and a big part of influencing younger people is the person who's telling them the thing, them thinking that they're cool.
Yes.
So a lot of the time,
Yes.
they'll send someone from an organization who's, tied into the organization on like a logistics level or whatever have you, and it's not their peer, it's nothing close to their peer. It's an older person who, this person probably feels like they're only here because they had to be, rather it be an obligation or something that the organization committed to with a school and they just sent them out and things like that. And it's never usually a person who's in the field, succeeding, thriving, and it's close to them and they feel like it's something for them to aspire to. It's usually someone that's talking about their post-career and things like that. That's really hard for a kid to tie into. I know that as being a dad of a younger girl. I have younger siblings. I have a lot of nephews and nieces. So it's just about sometimes figuring out, bridging that gap, finding the right person to deliver that message. Even if the person isn't probably directly tied to your organization, but they're a representation of what the environment that you're trying to foster, getting them to possibly speak on behalf of your organization. And I think a lot of people just totally missed the mark on that.
To your point, Sadiq, and that's a conversation I had with Maleku, who is the manager or maybe program director for BCYC. So a part of the reason why I agreed to coach this past fall was because I wanted to become more actively engaged in working with the youth, and I wanted to also teach myself, I wanted to learn, what was it like to be a youth cycling coach. So when I got to my site and I saw that it was all boys, and they were older boys. And I'm like, where are the girls? Like, where are the younger girls? Like, you know, who's talking to these kids? Who's recruiting? Like, what do the recruitment efforts look like? Because I need to be involved on that level. Like, I'm not saying I'm the coolest person in the world. However, I do connect well with the youth, and I connect well with people, I like to believe. So I want to be one of the folks going into the spaces and the places to try to recruit some more kids for the programming. But I agree with you. I agree. I believe that you need to send someone in that folks can connect with and identify with. And not saying that anyone who goes into the space does not have like valuable information to share. However, as you said, like if I don't see someone who I think I kind of can connect to, then it's just something that they said. It's not something that I'm really going to receive and think I'm going to act on it. So we have to be more intentional with who we're sending into, and we have enough people now in our communities that can go in and really recruit kids and get them actively engaged.
It's that difference between talking to and talking at.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's huge. It's like you can communicate, but if you're not effectively communicating, it does nothing.
All right.
One more thing on that. Also, when we have people going into these spaces that do not look like these children, be open to all feedback and be open to all concerns, because sometimes they just focus on the physical and the lack thereof things that they may need, and not going into the emotion that's involved in children being in these spaces with people who don't look like them, and experiences that they, not just children but adults of color, experience that they may have been through, that you don't know anything about.
Yes.
And understanding why they may be standoffish, why they may be apprehensive to be in these spaces. Just one quick comment. I had a woman say, I said, you know, I would never ask you, pretty much as a swimmer, I'll never ask a woman who doesn't have my hair type, what should I do with my hair? And the woman's response is, well, how should I ask you what should you do with my hair? And it's just specifically, you shouldn't ask, because I'll never ask you. And just, I could have took it as a comment of ignorance. Well, it was ignorance, but it was a space to educate. And that's how sometimes we have to look at some of these spaces, to not only educate, but to be educated and take those comments and that feedback and actually follow through with it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for sharing your time to come and listen to us, and we appreciate you. Yep.